think we got carried away with these new expensive spring outfits. I went over my budget, and I'm sure you went over yours.
Blanche, that's half the fun of shopping. The minute I realized I couldn't afford this dress, I bought it.
I don't think I went overboard.
Oh, Blanche, it's the duty of every woman to spend more than she can afford, so that her husband will go out and earn more than he's able to.
When Harry finds out what I'm doing for him, he'll raise the roof.
Spring makes George very generous and romantic.
Well, then, why are you hiding the dress?
Well, it's just for a few days. You see, at George's age, it takes spring a little time to get to him.
I'm in trouble. It never gets to Harry. He never even notices spring.
Well, then make him notice it. First, hide your dress, just like I did. Then put flowers all over the house and turn the heat way up. And when he starts opening the windows, show him the dress.
I like that. Maybe there is a little sap left in your own tree.
Sure.
Secret Agent 316 reporting. So that's the enemy's project for today, huh? Think I'll go down and join their little game.
Blanche, I'm sure my scheme will work. He's bound to think it's spring.
Well, all right, I'll try it. But if I know my husband, all it'll mean to him is that his winter underwear will start itching.
Oh, hello, Blanche.
Hello, George.
A new dress?
Yeah.
Hide it in good health.
Thank you.
Gracie, I got a surprise for you.
Oh?
I bought this for you.
Oh, well, thank you, dear. Oh, it's a dress. Thank you. Oh, and it's just what I wanted. Oh, the right style and the material I wanted. I don't know about the color, but I can always exchange it.
I thought it's exactly the color you wanted, too.
Oh, what do you men know about color? But you were sweet to get me this.
Well, it is springtime.
I know, but I didn't think it would reach you for at least another week.
I peeked at the calendar.
Oh, dear.
Yeah.
I have a confession to make.
Oh?
I bought a new dress this morning.
Really?
Of course, it's not as pretty as this one. I hid it in the cabinet.
In the cabinet, I know. I found it, and this is the dress you bought.
Oh, George, you're awful. It's not fair of you to put something over on me when I'm trying to put something over on you.
You know, Ron, I think we picked up a little tan rowing in the park this afternoon. I hope it's nice and sunny tomorrow, boy.
I certainly don't, boy. If we get caught cutting classes tomorrow, Professor Henderson's liable to throw us right out of school. I'm not kidding. You know, this is pretty serious. Well, hi, everybody.
Hi, Miss Burns.
There are some sandwiches in the refrigerator.
Oh, great. Go ahead and start.
How was college today?
Oh, just fine.
I noticed you're both sunburned. Where'd you get it?
Well, you see, in class, we sit by an open window.
If anybody wants me, I'll be up in the den.
All right, dear. And if you leave without telling me, be sure to let me know.
Open window, huh?
Oh, by the way, Ronnie, Professor Henderson phoned you this morning.
What did he say?
Nothing. He was anxious to talk to you. He said he would phone back.
Yeah? Well, look, Mother, I have a confession to make.
Oh, well, I hope you didn't hide it in the cabinet, or your father will certainly find it.
You see, Mother, the last 2 days, Ralph and I have cut classes. We went to Griffith Park instead.
Well, why?
Well, Mrs. Burns, it's spring, and I hate to get cooped up in one place. I kind of get itchy feet.
Oh, well, then your underwear must be even longer than Harry Morton's.
Look, Ralph, this is pretty serious. If Professor Henderson is phoning, that means he might throw us out of class. Look, Mother, I think I'm going to go up and tell Dad before he finds out, and I think I'm going to tell him the truth.
Well, why not? There's nothing wrong with the truth, unless you can't think of anything else.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, come on, Ralph.
Ronnie, are you really going to tell your dad the truth?
Yeah, but we got to soften him up first.
Well, how? How?
Well, yeah, just follow my lead.
Come in.
Dad, can we talk to you? That is, if you're not busy?
Yeah, just take a second.
Sit down, fellas.
No. You sit right here.
Make yourself comfortable. Sir.
What's your problem?
Well, it's not my problem. It's Ralph's.
Ralph, you got a problem?
Yeah, you see, he wants to tell his father something, but he's scared because he knows his father isn't as understanding as you are.
Well, what's your problem?
Oh, that's right, Ronnie. See, my dad isn't as understanding as your dad, and he's not as kind or considerate, or he's not as easy to talk to as your dad is either.
I'm lucky to have a dad like my dad because I know that when I'm worried, I can come to him and get forgiveness and consideration and understanding.
Yeah,
you are lucky to have a dad like your dad. See, I can't go to my dad and say, Dad, I've got a problem.
Well,
Dad.
then come
It's
to
a
me.
shame you can't go to your dad and say, Dad, a friend and I cut school for 2 days and haven't forgive you the way my father's gonna forgive me.
Took you fellas a long time to get there, but I'll say one thing. You didn't run out of oil, did you? You fellas cut class for 2 days?
Well, yes. You see, we got spring fever and went to the park. So if Professor Henderson calls back, I'm sure you can explain it to him.
Better call the professor, find out how serious
No,
this
Dad,
is.
don't forget, Professor Henderson doesn't understand about spring. See, he's just a sour old bachelor.
Well, I'm a kind, considerate old married man who's going to cut off his son's allowance. A tall fella that sits by an open window.
Hello, Professor Henderson speaking.
Professor Henderson, this is George Burns. I understand you called my son?
I wanted to invite all my students to come to my home on Sunday to meet my new bride.
Oh?
I got married 2 days ago. In fact, I haven't been to the college since. That's why I'm calling all my pupils. Be sure to have Ronnie come Sunday.
I'll tell him.
Goodbye, Mr. Burns.
But, Professor, you couldn't. Professor, they're such young fellas. Supposing they stayed in their room for a few days and crammed and studied and really worked. Yes. Oh, sure, I'm positive. Okay, Professor, but don't forget, they're really very young. Goodbye.
Hey, Dad, you tell Mother to send our meals up to my room for the next 2 days.
Yeah. Well, the park was nice while it lasted.
That's a pretty mean trick I played on those boys. That's a pretty mean trick that they're playing on education. You know, it doesn't have to be spring for those boys to get spring fever. They can catch it any time of the year. All they got to do is sit near an open book. Those are two studious young men. If it rains out, they won't go to school because it's nasty. If the sun shines, it's too nice. In fact, they won't go to school on any day that has weather in it. And Ronnie's excuses are just beautiful. I walked into his bedroom, and there he was lying on the bed with about 4 pounds of potato chips. And I said, Ronnie, you've got some exams at the end of the week. Why aren't you working? And he said, I can't. The noise in this room interferes with my studying. I said, why don't you keep the door closed? He says, it isn't that. It's the potato chips I'm eating. They make an awful racket. Of course, all his excuses aren't such tall ones. I remember one little blonde who was only 5'2". Another time he said that he was flunking in math because his professor hated him, so I spoke to the professor. He said, how could I hate him? I've never even seen the boy. But he takes after his mother. Gracie comes up with some beauties, too. When I want Gracie to do something that she doesn't want to do, she makes up so many excuses that she can't decide which one to use, but she's very fair about it. She writes them down and lets me pick out the one I like best. You know, when I went to school, I flunked in American history, but I had a legitimate reason. I failed in it because of bad penmanship. The girl I was sitting in back of knew all the answers, but her handwriting was so bad I couldn't read them. Imagine me flunking in American history. When I was a kid, there was so little of it. But I guess the reason Ronnie is having such a problem in school is that he got off to a bad start in the 2nd grade. One day he forgot to do his homework, and to punish him, the teacher made him sit with the girls. He hasn't done his homework since.
This is Blanche. Yeah, Harry will be home any minute, so I can't talk very long. No, I just wanted you to know that I'm following your advice about my problem.
Wonderful. I'm sure it'll work. Oh, by the way, what is your problem, and what did I advise?
Well, honey, I want Harry to think it's spring, remember?
Oh, of course. So he'll warm up and let you keep your new outfit.
I've hidden the dress, and I've filled the house with spring flowers, and I have the heat turned up so high that I just hope they won't wilt before he gets here. Oh, there he is now. I'll call you later. Bye. Oh, my goodness, home already?
Why, of course. It's lunchtime. Why are you dressed like that? Did you just get out of bed?
Please, this is a very expensive negligee.
Blanche, I happen to work for a living. Can't you sleep in something cheaper?
Don't you notice the flowers? Don't you know what they mean? Oh,
Good heavens, what's gotten into you?
oh, Harry, didn't you notice what a beautiful, warm, balmy day this is?
I'm aware of an unusual manifestation of balminess, but not in the weather, I'm sorry.
Harry, relax. Don't you feel how beautiful the weather is?
Blanche, I'm afraid you're becoming ill. Your brow is feverish. Now, you certainly should not be standing around in that flimsy underwear. You'll develop pneumonia. Here, I'll turn the heat up for you. I see you've already got it on full blast.
Oh, really? I didn't know it was on.
You didn't know it was on. Blanche, my dear, you are ill. Now, you shouldn't be on your feet.
Oh, Harry, I'm not ill. I feel perfectly all right. I'm just a little overheated because it's spring.
But that's because you're suffering from alternate chills and fever. Now, here, you lie down here, and I will get you a hot water bottle, and I'll bring you an electric blanket.
Harry?
What?
I bought a new spring outfit, and I was trying to get you in the mood to let me keep it.
Well, you certainly didn't have to go through all this ridiculous deception. All you had to do was bring it to me and say, Harry, I have just bought a new spring outfit.
And what would you say?
I'd say, take it back.
I won't take it back.
You are the most extravagant woman in this entire neighborhood, and I am the most persecuted husband.
For your information, Gracie bought a new outfit. George knows nothing about it. She hid it in the living room.
Always trying to put the blame on Gracie. Well, I do not believe it.
Excuse me, I've got to go downstairs and thicken the plot.
It's hidden right here.
What is it?
Something Gracie bought.
Oh? Well, what do you know? A smoking jacket for me. Well, isn't that nice? I will see you at the house. I'm not really as mean as I look. I'll straighten this out later. But I've got to keep the fight going until the finish of the show.
You gonna eat in your room?
For 2 days, and we're going to study while we're eating.
You see, Mrs. Burns, Professor Henderson's just a grouchy old bachelor. All he knows is books. He doesn't understand that in spring, a young man's fancy lightly turns the thoughts of something else.
Well, then there's no problem. All we have to do is turn his fancy in the same direction.
Yeah.
Oh, hi, Ralph.
Hi.
Well, see you later.
Gracie, I've got something to tell you.
Oh, what is it?
I'm in love with the most beautiful, wonderful woman in the whole world.
Oh, well, I'm flattered, Harry, but I wish you hadn't said that. After all, you're one of George's dearest friends.
You've got the wrong person.
Well, you might think I have, but I wouldn't change George for anybody.
Gracie, I'm in love with somebody else. Her name is Mimi Conrad.
Oh, well, that's wonderful.
Yes. Well, the point is, Gracie, she's coming over here this afternoon to meet everybody, you know. And would you do me a favor?
Well, sure. What is it?
Well, if the conversation gets around to age, sort of help me along. You see, I lied to her a little bit about my age.
Oh, how old did you tell her you were?
How old do you think I look?
Well, it doesn't matter, but I'm sure you're much younger than that.
Well, anyway, I feel real young. You know, when a fella my age falls in love, something really happens to him. Gosh, before I was just a grouchy old bachelor, and now the world's a wonderful place. I want to help people.
Oh, excuse me, I have to make a phone call.
Oh, sure. Gracie, look, I'm going over to Martin's and tell them the news.
I'll call call Professor Henderson and have him come over and meet Mimi. If she can make a grouchy old bachelor like Harry Von Zell happy, she can certainly throw a little happiness the professor's way, too.
Professor Thompson and his wife, and Dean Williams and his wife. We must invite them, darling.
Of course, sweetheart.
Excuse me, dearest. Hello, Professor Henderson speaking.
Professor Henderson, this is Mrs. Burns. I must see you about something very important. Can you come over to my house immediately?
Well, all right, Mrs. Burns. I'll be there.
Oh.
Darling, we'll have to work on the list a little later. That was Mrs. Burns. She wants to see me immediately. It must be about her son.
Oh. Well, I suppose it's your job.
I shall miss you, dearest. Oh, darling, I can't bear to be separated from you for a moment. Why don't you come along?
Wonderful.
I'm sure you'll like the Burnses. She in particular is delightful. A little odd at times, but delightful.
And your friends are my friends now, dear. By the way, Howard, I think I left my gloves in the car. Would you get them for me?
Of course, my sweet.
Oh, how do you do, Mrs. Burns?
Oh, I know who you are, and you're just as pretty as Harry Von Zell said you were. Come on in.
But, Mrs. Burns, I don't think...
You don't have to. You're pretty enough. I'll do the thinking for you. Now, here's how you can help me. There's a man named Professor Henderson, and he's coming here, and I want you to make love to him.
Did you say Henderson?
Yes, he's a grouchy old bachelor, but if you meet someone like you, it might soften him up.
And you want me to make love to him?
Well, just long enough to keep a couple of young men's fancies from being thrown out of college.
This might be fun.
Oh, that must be him. Now, you just go in the sitting room and stop.
How do you do, Mrs. Burns?
Oh, come right in, Professor Henderson. Let me take your hat and gloves. Oh, like these gloves, the same kind I wear. Now, I've got a surprise for you.
After that?
See that girl in there? Isn't she beautiful?
Why, yes.
She's dying to meet you.
She is?
Yes, she's given up Harry Von Zell. Come on in. Mimi, I want you to meet Professor Henderson.
Hello,
Mimi.
Mimi.
Professor, it's such lovely spring weather. Why don't you two take a walk and get acquainted?
We will. Mrs. Burns, will you and Mr. Burns and Ronnie come to my home Sunday evening?
Your home?
I'm giving a reception for my new wife.
Oh, your new wife. Well, all these professors are fast workers, I think.
In the latter half of the 19th century, the novel was
Professor Henderson.
Boys,
look, the
I
real reason
hope you missed me. I'm sorry I wasn't in class the last 2 days.
What?
Oh, may I present Mrs. Henderson?
How do you do?
How do you
Pleasure
do,
to meet you.
boys? It's nice to meet you.
In fact, I won't be in class the rest of the week.
Mother, if Barney, Sue, and Kathy phone us, tell them that we'll meet them in the park. You see, we're going to do our studying there.
But you're not taking your books.
Well, that doesn't matter. Neither will they.
Yeah.
George!
Yes, I was just going to have a cup of coffee.
George.
What?
I did it again.
What'd you do?
Well, Ronnie and Ralph are back in college, and Professor Henderson is marrying Mimi.
You did all that now?
Well, when you've got this, it doesn't take long.
I guess not.
Now I've got to use this other half and find a girl for Harry Von Zell.
Well, I would save the other half until next week.
Well, come to think of it, I did do a day's work, didn't I?
That you did. Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, Gracie, who will it be tonight?
Well, how about my great-great-grandmother, Mamie Allen, the best trick shot and fancy rider in the West?
Well, she sounds like a great woman.
Yeah, but you'd never know it to look at her. She dressed like a man.
Oh, she dressed like a man?
Yeah, she rode horses and shot like a man.
Shot like a man.
Yeah, she even smoked a pipe like a man. Huh? The only time you'd ever know she was a woman was when it came time to cook the evening meal.
She would cook it?
No, she always said, let's eat out.
Runs in the family, you say the same thing.
Anyway, Grandma Mamie could do tricks shooting with pistols, rifles, shotguns, revolvers, bows and arrows, and she could even shoot with a porcupine.
Porcupine?
Yeah.
How did she do that?
Oh, it was easy. She'd just aim the porcupine at whatever she wanted to hit, and then she'd pinch it in the right spot
pinch, yeah.
Until it shot all its quills.
That sounds like a pretty dangerous weapon.
Yeah, but she had trouble reloading it.
Well, how do you reload that?
How do you load it in the first place?
Let's continue. Huh?
But pistols were her specialty. When she worked with the Wild West show, she did the fanciest shooting anybody ever saw.
Like shooting an apple off somebody's head?
Oh, no. Shooting things off somebody's head was too easy.
Too easy
for her, yes. She'd find a man in the audience whose hair was kind of long, and then she'd stand back 50 yards and give him a crew cut.
I'll bet she was pretty good with shaggy eyebrows, too.
Well, she was.
How was she with sideburns?
Oh, very cute. I told you she looked like a man.
Every time I say something, you've got an answer for it. And thank goodness.
Oh, she had some exciting experiences. Once while she was hunting, she was grabbed by a huge grizzly bear. He nearly hugged her to death.
Well, couldn't she shoot him?
Well, no, she swooned, and when she regained consciousness, the bear was gone.
Well, that was a pretty narrow escape.
Well, sure. So she went out the next day, and finally she met that same bear again.
What happened?
Well, this time he wouldn't hug her, so she shot him, yeah.
Say that.
Appearing on tonight's show were Robert Ellis as Ralph, Louis Martin as Professor Henderson, and Irene Hervey as Florence Henderson.